everybody take their seats, please? Thank you very much. Good morning. Okay. Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
There we go. All right, fantastic. Welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting. Today is Friday, September 13th. Good luck for some. I am the chairman of the committee, Mitchell Englander. I'm joined by my honorable colleagues, Mike Bonin and Mitch O'Farrell. I know Joe Buscaino is here on his way as well, and I wanted to thank you all for coming here and putting up with the traffic to get here so early in the morning. Really appreciate that. Hopefully we can let some of you go rather quickly. We have one comment card on items 2 through 5, okay, and we'll take those together anyway, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll start off with general public comment. Do we have any general public comment cards?
No, sir.
Okay, then that'll close general public comment. Nobody's here on general public comment. If you wish to speak before this committee, we do have a quorum as well, if you can fill out a comment card and on that particular item and submit it to the clerk, and we can go ahead and take that. On consent, we've got a number of items. Unless my committee members have any objection for consent, welcome Joe Buscaino. It's his birthday this week, so we'll make sure that we all embarrass him. And on consent, well, don't sing. We'll take item 6, item 7, item 8, 9, 10, 12, and 17. And if you can hold on for 1 second. Hey, this started the Public Safety Committee. Are you going to be around for, I'll call you right after this?
It's got to be the mayor.
Go ahead and say,
Jimmy Chase,
wait, hold on a sec. I got you on speakerphone. You're in committee right now. If you can say hi to the new commissioners.
I think this is an extraordinary group of commissioners. I think that you shouldn't ask them any questions and just say yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, I'll call.
You guys are serving and grill them well.
All right. We will grill them. Absolutely. You got it, sir. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
You can see the photo he has on there.
There's 2 calls I take at any time. My family and the mayor. All right. And the council president, and my colleagues, and fire chief. Right. So with that, we'll go ahead and take on the consent again: 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and 17. So if you're here on those items, without objection, unless my colleagues have any questions on those, that'll be the order. And I believe there may be some CAO reports to go along with those.
On items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12 are CAO reports not listed on the agenda. Do you wish to approve those as part of your action this morning?
Yeah, that'll be the order.
And on item 8, there is a technical amendment presented by the CAO.
Correct. On that technical amendment and on the UASI reallocation, we'll go ahead and accept that as amended as well.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And with that, let's go ahead and go right into our commissioners here. We've got an incredible panel that we're blessed to bring forth. But we'll start off first with public comment. We've got 1 card from Frank Lima. Frank, come on up if you want to speak. And if there's anybody else here on items 2 through 5, we're going to go ahead and take all the commissioners at the same time. Feel free to fill out a comment card. Morning, Frank.
Good morning, sir. Morning, Public Safety Committee. My name is Frank Lima, and I'm proud to serve as the president of United Firefighters of Los Angeles City Local 112, and I'm here today to express the strong support of the United Firefighters of Los Angeles City Local 112 for the 4 highly qualified nominees for the Los Angeles Fire Commission that you have before you today. On behalf of the Los Angeles City firefighters and paramedics, who we are honored to represent, we thank Mayor Garcetti for the selection of Ms. Jimmy Woods Gray, Dr. Jimmy Hara, Mr. Andrew Glazier, and Ms. Delia Barra to the Los Angeles Fire Commission. We have done an extensive review of these nominees for for the Fire Commission, and we have found each one of them to be highly qualified and well prepared to serve on this crucial commission. This is important because we need strong, qualified individuals to serve on this commission to help lead our department in a new direction. In recent years, our department has been cut more than any other city department. We've lost hundreds of firefighters and paramedics without hiring a single firefighter for the past 5 years. As a result, response times in Los Angeles have risen, and both public and firefighter safety has been put at greater risk. Council members, being a firefighter is a tough job that takes a tremendous physical toll on our members. We had 3 active duty fire captains lose their lives this summer over the course of 18 days. Morale in our department has dropped, and our members need your support. That's why it's crucial for our department to have strong leadership that will push for meaningful reforms and increase staffing levels to improve public safety in our city. As president of the United Firefighters and a captain in this department, I know that Ms. Woods-Gray, Dr. Hara, Mr. Glazier, Ms. Ibarra, Mr. Fazio will work with Mayor Garcetti and members of this Public Safety Committee to provide leadership that is so desperately needed. On behalf of 3,100 members of UFLAC, I thank you in advance for your support of these nominees to serve on this Fire Commission. These are exceptional individuals who will serve our city and department with distinction. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming this morning, and Frank, always being there for your men and women of the department and for the city. Appreciate it. Thank you. With that, I'd also like to recognize Steve Fazio, our current commissioner, and who has dedicated a great deal of effort, energy, enthusiasm, knowledge, experience, and drive for this department and for the city as well, who's here just to honor his future colleagues and support them as well, and appreciate his service to the city, which has been just remarkable and outstanding, and a good friend of all Angelinos, so welcome. Thanks for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. Before we call up our candidates and put them in the hot seat, we'll go ahead and continue 3 items. Item 1, item 13, and item 15. We're waiting for report backs and some various other issues, so those will be continued for another meeting for 1, 13, and 15. And then on that, if now I can call our candidates, Jimmy Woods, Dr. Hara, if you want to take your seats here, Mr. Glazier, Ms. Ibarra. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So what we'll do, if it's okay with the committee, typically what we'll do is we'll open it up for questions right away. I've had the opportunity to sit with each and every one of you, and I've had the opportunity to work with some of you over the years as well. And I've looked through all your backgrounds. We had some terrific discussions, some very heart-to-heart, meaningful discussions about the department, the issues facing the department, what your focus and energy is, and what you want to look at bringing to the department. And I got to tell you, I was really impressed with each and every one of you, from your experiences, your understanding and knowledge of where and what direction we should go in, but more importantly, the collaborative effort that you all shared independently, that we need to work together and get on the same page, that there are a lot of issues, and certainly this is an awesome opportunity to really focus on the needs of the department and the city, being one of the most important functions, quite frankly, of local government. That we have the best fire department, bar none, in the country, that do more with less than any other department, and do so well. And so I was really impressed with each and every one of you. If we could, if it's okay with the committee, we'll go ahead with some opening statements from each one of you, and then go into questions, and I'll have your questions come first. Please. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to the chair and to the committee members, council members. I'm Jimmy Woods-Gray. I'm a retired teacher. I live in South Los Angeles. I was born and reared in Texas, and Texas moved me to California quickly because of the public education system here. When I came to California, the community college just cost $6.50 a semester. So you can see why I'd come here to go to college. I know it's quite different today, but it drew me here, and I received all of my education in the public schools, well, except for Pepperdine. I did go to college, the public universities, to receive my undergraduate degrees. I worked as a teacher for 46-plus years, teaching all levels from pre-K through elementary, 6th grade, and doing other jobs within the school. Many of these jobs prepare me for commission work because of the fact that I had to work with, and did work with pleasure, with firefighters in our neighborhood, and even with one who had a reading program that I worked with him until I retired, where he came to the school on a regular basis and read to children and inspired them to want to read and inspired them to be firefighters. And actually, some of my students have gone on to be firefighters. I am very excited about working on this commission because it again gives me an opportunity to do what I love doing most, and that's serving and giving back. I thoroughly enjoy investing time for the city of Los Angeles. I love the city of LA, and it's very important to me to see that we get back to the basic services. And I believe that fire services are extremely basic, and we want to make sure that we deliver the best services to the citizens of Los Angeles, the services that they truly expect to receive. So working with the council and the mayor, I believe that in this wonderful commission, that we will all be able to deliver services and move LA back to the basic services as we would like to have. We realize that the fire services, I think, probably are some of the most important, along with fire and police, because it's the economic engine for the city. When people get ready to come here, they look to see how safe is this city. We want to make sure that we deliver the picture that will attract people and help us, again, to help the mayor and the city council to develop an economic background and area so that they will feel safe and want to be here. And again, I thank you for this opportunity. I'm extremely excited.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Hara. I'm a physician, and I happen to have retired from Kaiser Permanente 3 years ago, although I still teach in the residency training program, where I served as a program director for 25 years. Actually, during much of that time, one of my patients happened to be Mayor Eric Garcetti, and he called me saying that he wanted someone with some medical background to serve on the fire commission. And just like Mitch couldn't refuse the call, I couldn't refuse his offer for an appointment on the fire commission. I retired from Permanente 3 years ago, but I still teach in the residency. I am now Associate Dean and Professor of Family Medicine at Charles Drew University, where I was actually hired by the new president of the Charles Drew University, David Carlisle, who used to be Director of Office of Statewide Health Planning Development. We had a very long relationship up in Sacramento because I was chair of the Healthcare Workforce Policy Commission, the Song-Brown Commission for the state of California. And during my time at Kaiser Permanente, I actually started 3 of the family medicine residencies in the program. So when David called me, he said, I'd like you to become an associate dean at Charles Drew so that you can start a family medicine residency for Charles Drew University, even before Martin Luther King Hospital reopens. Just like the mayor, I served, well, he's still in the Naval Reserve, but I served in the U.S. Navy. I was the medical officer for the cruiser destroyer force of the 7th Fleet during the Vietnam War, and actually went overseas and came back on the USS Turner Joy. And it was, if you recall, it's the Turner Joy and the Maddox that started the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And she was allowed to fire the last round of naval gunfire at the end of the war.
And I believe, I'm sorry to interrupt, you became also rank of lieutenant commander. Is that correct?
Yeah. And because I am a veteran of a war, I have a vested interest in making sure that those who serve our country basically end up with good health care and and mental health services upon their return. As you know, there are a number of returnees from the Middle East who have committed suicide, and there's a huge problem with our veterans. So therefore, I'm a very strong supporter of the Soldier Project, which provides mental health services for returning veterans, and likewise the Wounded Warrior Project, so that we don't forget about those who have lost their limbs 5, 10, 15 years later. I want to make sure that they continue to have the medical services that they deserve. So I also, being a physician, I've been very active with Physicians for Social Responsibility. I'm currently the vice president. I served as their president for a number of years. I served on the national board of PSR as well, and that's the anti-nuclear organization and part of the International Physicians for Prevention of Nuclear War, which won the Nobel Peace Prize back in '85. And I also have been very active with Physicians for Human Rights, which also won the Nobel Peace Prize for their work. And so my wife and my 2 boys, when they were 5 and 8 years of age, they marched across the country in the Great Peace March for global nuclear disarmament. So I've been committed to wanting to make sure that not only in our local communities we have healthy communities, but that we preserve humanity on this planet, because a nuclear war would be certainly devastating. And so I am honestly very humbled and honored to be recommended by the mayor to serve on this commission.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Glazier. It's good to be here. Thank you for having us. So I currently serve as the managing director for program and service for City Year Los Angeles. We're an AmeriCorps nonprofit. I currently supervise a little over 300 AmeriCorps members and their line and mid-level staff that supervise their work in 22 LAUSD schools. We do service as tutors and mentors and role models. I'm also a 4th-generation Angelino, many of which actually coming out of the San Fernando Valley. I'm currently living in the Hollywood area. And also in those 4 generations, there are 4 generations of city service, with my great-grandfather serving as a DWB lineman on the project to bring power along the aqueduct. My great-grandmother was also the foreman of street services for the San Fernando Valley in the 40s. My grandmother worked at DWP, my mom briefly in the contracts administration, and here I am today carrying on that legacy of service. So I'm very, very excited about that, and I'm particularly excited to be part of the fire service, which the 7-year-old in me is now living out their lifelong dream. And the adult in me is equally as excited to be involved in something that is so vitally important to our city, and something that I think brings tremendous opportunity to bring together, labor and management and mayor's office to make sure that our fire service is the best it can possibly be. So I look forward to working with all of you. I look forward to working with my fellow members of the commission, and thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, council members. My name is Delia Barra. I'm an attorney. I'm currently a resident of Echo Park, actually Angelino Heights, so it's CD1. But I grew up in unincorporated East LA and in Boa Heights. I'm an Angelina, and I'm honored to be considered for this post. There's no more important role for government than to respond to the emergency needs of all of its residents. Few departments touch the lives of Angelinos like the fire department does. During the last several years, despite challenging economic times, the men and women at the fire department have managed to fulfill this important role and to not let us down. During the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to meet and speak to some of you and some of your staff about some of your ideas about how to improve the department. One thing is clear. Each of you, each of us here seeking confirmation today, know that we need to work together. With you, with the mayor, with his staff, with all of the stakeholders in the fire department to help the department continue to fulfill this important mission. And where there is room for improvement, there's a strong will from all of us to work together to achieve those improvements. I know there's a lot of work ahead because it is a large and complex department with a very broad mission. But I also know that there's a lot of hands on deck, that there's a common purpose and common goal, and most importantly, that there's a strong will. So with that, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I look forward to it, and I look forward to working with each of you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to welcome Councilwoman Nuri Martinez, who is here as well. Thank you very much. And if we want to open up with questions, we can start anywhere.
I don't have any yet.
Yeah, okay. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for agreeing to serve on this incredible commission. You will, upon confirmation, you will soon be given the opportunity to help deliver one of the core services that we provide in the City of Los Angeles as public safety services. And Ms. Jimmy Woods, you're absolutely right. If people don't feel safe in the City of Los Angeles, you're not going to want to live here, work here, raise your families here, do business here, visit here. I want to hear from you your thoughts on the department and where the good things that are happening, what's going right, and some room for improvements. And secondly, I'd like to hear from you on the use of technology and how we can deliver our fire services in using technology. I'll just open it up to the entire panel.
Okay, does anyone else want to start first? I'll let them start. You're looking at me, sir. Okay. First of all, technology is extremely important. Nothing in this country is run without technology. My goals for the department would be to have technology that could tell me exactly what each station has done that day. I want to be able to key in and say, oh, so Fire Station 66 had this many calls, they were this kind of call, or they did whatever they did for that day. I believe it's important for the accountability for us to know what's happening in each of the stations. The only way we can see it across the board is through technology. Paperwork won't work. I mean, we have to move into the age where we actually are using computers constantly to log in the activities that we're doing on a regular basis. That way, everybody in the whole city, including commissioners, could tune in and say, oh, let me see what did Fire Station 15 do today. And that's interesting. That would be interesting to me to see exactly how the resources are being used. So I hope that we will be able to, and I'm not that familiar with the system that we have. I've just heard talk of the upgrading and the improvements that are needed, but that would be where I'd like to see the department as far as technology is concerned. My experiences with the firefighters has been wonderful. They get to the sites. In my particular situations, they've always gotten there fast and on time. There's been a lot of talk about a lot of other things, but I believe that I really am going to have to study. I want to be able to, one of my goals is to visit each of the fire stations and to meet the firefighters, because that way I get to know exactly what's going on. These are the people that I'm really working for and with, and that will help us to deliver the services that we really need. So that's what my goal is. My experiences with the fire stations and the firefighters has been wonderful. I've met wonderful people. I've worked with them in the schools before, and we always visit fire stations and had fire equipment on our campuses, and everyone has always been extremely helpful. And I have never heard of complaints about the fire department from the people in my neighborhoods. You might hear about it from other people, but everybody seems to love a firefighter. And I taught pre-K for many years, and the preschool children, when you say, what would you like to be when you grow up? A police officer. No, they usually say policeman and a fireman, but eventually, after working with me, they say police officer and firefighter. But so that's the goal of most of our young children, because they all have glowing reputations in our neighborhoods and communities. So I have nothing to say about I really don't know exactly what they're doing at this moment, but I plan to study that. And with your help, I'm sure that you will help us to understand what the real needs are of this department.
Thank you.
Actually, similar to Jimmy, my own experience in Kaiser Permanente is where we've had a very robust electronic health record now for almost a decade, and the practice of medicine, at least, is very different from what it used to be, and I certainly see the value of information technology. And as far as the other issues, I'm I'm ready to study and better understand what the issues might be, and as any physician, I usually consider all the facts, and after that I make a decision as to what the appropriate course of action might be.
Thanks for the question. I think without a doubt the thing that's going right is the men and women of our department who are out there every day. They put their lives on the line, and for that, I think everybody in the city needs to be grateful. I think where technology comes in is in how do we support them in doing their job, the best that they could possibly do. And I think it can take a lot of different forms, from keying into some of what's happening in terms of paperless medical records, or in terms of tracking response times. But I think the data that comes out is really a place to start. I think as my conversation with Councilmember Englander, one of the things he said that really stuck with me is if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. And we need to have the technology in place that's going to let us measure it, whatever it is, and understand what those metrics are that really tell us about what success means. And so I'm looking forward to digging into that. I'm looking forward to talking to a lot of different people about that. And I know the technology, it spans from, how you track records to radios to, fire alert systems. And as a department, one of the things we got to do is make sure we're operating in the 21st century and that the technology is there to support the men and women in the field to make sure that they are as safe as they can be and to make sure that we know the information we need to know to do so we know that we're doing the job well.
To me, technology is key, and similarly with the conversation with Councilmember Englander, it was just clear that there is a desperate need for technology in almost every part of the department. There's so many ways that it could make life easier for the men and women who serve there, for the administrative framework, for everything, not just for metrics and for establishing a baseline of the different issues that come up, but also just for making everybody's lives easier, and just making sure that we have GPSs in all the vehicles. All of these little things, small things and big things. There's a lot of technology out there. We should. I know that there's going to be some budgetary concerns as to whether we can bring these issues in, but if we can find it, I think that it's going to be the key thing to helping this department work better.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Sure. Just some comments. I have personal experience with most of you, and then Dr. Hara, my partner, George Brockman, is an employee at Kaiser Permanente. So I feel connected to all four of you, and I'm so impressed with not only your resumes, but your independent way of thinking, your fairness, and your objective approach to your decision making, because I've had conversations with Ms. Barra at length. Of course, Andrew, I've known you for many years now. And Jimmy Woods-Gray, I've always been so impressed with what you have to offer. And coming from public education, and I think that you all are wonderful public servants and have so much to offer. I think these are home run appointments across the board. And I think you'll serve the department well. And I'm always aware that in addition to the police department, our firefighters and our police officers are really the two occupations that anytime someone leaves the station, they don't always consciously think of this, but they're putting their life at risk every single time they put on that uniform and head out the door. And so there's nothing more important. There's no commission more important than the Fire Commission and then, of course, the Police Commission. So I applaud you, and I'm just completely impressed with all four of you. And I thank you so much for stepping up to serve in this capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for your willingness to serve. I underscore everything that my colleagues have said about what a stellar panel of nominees you are, and how important it is that you serve, particularly at this time, for a department that is its main job is to save lives and property. Thank you very much for your service. I'm curious if any of you have had an opportunity yet to read the recent Los Angeles County Civil Grand Jury report on the fire department. Anybody other than Andrew?
Not in detail. I'm aware of it.
I'd ask that each of you read it. It sort of lays out some very stark issues facing the department in terms of technology, in terms of response times, in terms of deployment, and it might be a good starting point for some of the stuff you'll need to delve into. Andrew, having read it, could you tell me what you think the most pressing challenges facing the department?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is it was an interesting report. It's one report. And so I probably would hesitate to characterize what I think the most pressing issues at this point are. But certainly they spent a lot of time talking about response times. But I think what I thought was most interesting was that how hard it is to really gauge what those numbers mean. There are lots of ways to think about response times, and I think it's the most visceral number that comes out. But I think unless we really dig into what's behind those numbers and how you get there, we do ourselves a disservice to stop there. And so to me, that was one of the more interesting things. Looking at the report was how are we measuring that number and what does it mean? And so that is part of my quest to learn more about how we measure things and the way in which we measure things, because I use data a lot in my job in working with schools, and one thing I like to say is, GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out. And so if you don't have good numbers coming in, and I read the report about a month back, and so, but I think this was something that struck me was if you don't have the good numbers coming in, it's really hard to do the analysis on the other end. And so I think that's a really pressing issue is do we have the good data coming in, the good numbers coming in that allow us to actually make some decisions about this to decide whether or not this is actually the thing that's telling us what we need to know, and is it actionable, and if so, what do we do with that? There's a lot more to learn in that number. I think it just scratches the surface. I think it was a good effort, and I'm glad it was done. To me, the most pressing need to me that came out of that was we got to learn more about this and about what's coming and what this data is, and then start to see what that opens up. My guess is that's going to open up a really big discussion about a lot of different things.
Over the past several years, the fire department, I think many people would argue, myself included, has not received its fair share of money in the city budget. As a result, a number of tough choices have been made, and the department is not, in my perspective, fully deployed, certainly in parts of my district. I think parts of my district share some of the challenges that Mr. O'Farrell's district does. You have very long and winding canyon roads. In the northern part of my district, which is an extreme fire hazard, one of the worst fire hazards in the city near the Santa Monica Mountains, we have had cuts in deployment, which I share the view of my predecessor. I think those cuts are irresponsible, and I think they are threatening people's safety. I think Mr. Lima would probably agree with me in that assessment. I would ask that each of you take in your first few weeks, a ride in the department's helicopter. I'm sure they'll offer you each a tour. I ask that you specifically ask them to take you into the northern part of my district, above Mandeville Canyon and above the Pacific Palisades Highlands, and look and see those long and winding canyon roads in the middle of fire territory, one way in and one way out. And ask yourselves, why would we have cut service in those areas and what we can do to get it back. When I took my tour before taking office, I asked the gentleman, we went over the whole city, and I asked the gentleman what keeps him up at night. And he said, Mr. Bonin, the northern part of your district. And we've had cuts, and they need to be restored. We need to get deployment back, and I'd ask you to pay some attention and focus on that. I'd also like to underscore what my colleagues have said about technology. I've spent a lot of time since taking office at fire stations, hanging with the rank and file. And the technology I've seen is scary. There are cracked laminated maps that fall apart when some of the guys open them up in their rigs. I've seen big binders, bigger than Mr. Englander's folder here, of shortcuts of how to get around in canyon roads. It's an embarrassing technology in a smartphone era to have, frankly, Thomas Guide technology, and I'd ask you to take a look at that. Just one other question, since those were not really questions but statements, is it's always hard in a bureaucracy for good ideas to percolate up. And I think we have tremendously good ideas that I hear all the time when I sit around the kitchen or the dining room table with our firefighters. It's always harder for ideas to percolate up in a paramilitary-style organization. It's organized that way for a reason. It's justifiable. That's how it needs to be. You need a command and control structure, but it makes it harder for ideas to percolate up. You all come from different backgrounds, many of you with experiences in different types of bureaucracies, medical, educational. How do you think you can find those good ideas, and how do you think you can encourage a process for them to percolate up?
I think the field, I mean, creating avenues so that folks in the field who are actually doing the work daily, we need to find opportunities to hear from them. As Ms. Woods-Gray said, getting out to the stations, talking to the rank and file, but also I think holding our command staff accountable for what they know. I'm looking forward to asking them, what are the 3 things you learned from the field this year that you feel like are things that are replicable, or what was the most important thing you learned from being in the field? And I think that that's one way of getting innovation to come up and finding out what the needs are. And I think we as commissioners, being able to talk to the rank and file. 82s is my station. I look forward to being counted in for dinner there, and on some coming occasion, and I will play the cards and do the dishes if I lose. There's no substitute for just talking and having the conversation. In my own organization, this is what we do. We visit the schools, we talk to the core members, we talk to the staff, we say, how's this working for you? My organization is command and control too. We're very hierarchical. We're like that for a reason. It makes good sense. We're not paramilitary, but we are hierarchical. But even within that, there are ways to flatten out the organization that enable you to hear the things that you need to hear and get information you need to get. And then as a command staff, you make decisions, right, with that information, and that's good and that's right. But you want to make sure you're pulling in the information in ways that is efficient but also useful.
Well, I think that it's important to be able to look for best practices. I mean, certainly we have an exemplary department, perhaps one of the best in the country at certain things, but we shouldn't be so close-minded as to think that we know how to do it best. There's definitely a lot of fire departments around the country and around the world. They face similar issues to the ones that we face here. We should look to them and see, some of what they're doing is not what we would want to do, but certainly where they're doing things better than we are, we should look to them, see what technology they're using. We should always be about learning, and I'm certain that there's going to be a will to do that in the department, and I look forward to that.
One of the things that I enjoyed in the last campaign was listening tours. I'm a person who believes that it's not top down, but bottom up. So we need to and that's one of the reasons why I want to visit every fire station and talk with the people that work in those stations, because they understand their jobs better than anyone else. And they also know what it takes to do the job and what will make it better. And of course, my primary goal always is going to be helping them to do things that will keep them safe, because that should be all of not only the city, but the members in the department. But I believe in talking with them and having an organized form of talking with them, like the listening tours, would be a great thing that we might consider, and I probably will propose that to my colleagues.
Great idea.
Yeah, in healthcare, we have what we call best practices, where we try to learn from each other what works the best and try to replicate that throughout an organization. And hopefully we will be able to identify what some of the best practices are, not only within our fire department, but what other fire departments have done that seem to work.
Bingo. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Martinez?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Just a couple things, if I could add as well. First and foremost, I think you're right on the technology part. You can't, and I can't say it enough, you can't fix what you can't measure. And if I can backtrack on that for a moment, and one of the things Councilmember Bonin mentioned as well is that the department has been decimated. But it did so, and we can't lose sight of the history of how we got here as well as we prepare to fix things and put things into place to make sure that resources are returned, that we restore this department and start building upon the mistakes that have been made. A lot of that was based on information that was given to our predecessors from the fire department on data. It was data saying they can sustain cuts, they can sustain those elements because we have the resources and we have the response times and they won't be affected. The data was flawed. It wasn't that they misled or misrepresented the information. The data was simply flawed. There's been numerous reports beyond the grand jury report. There's been the IDA report. I suggested a lot of readings to you when we all met. That's one of them as well. The Information Data Analysis Task Force that was put together by Mr. Scobin is critically important. I applaud the mayor for keeping Mr. Scobin on and revising that role as one of the most critical roles in the department, is advising the mayor directly on the information data analysis. So I suggest you meet with them as well. And his work that will continue in that effort, which is incredibly important. I don't believe, if you will, just throwing fire on the fire to put the fire out. It doesn't make sense. For that matter, putting water anywhere on the fire. There's a strategy every time a firefighter goes up to a scene. Oftentimes they light backfires and wildfires. Oftentimes they take an approach which is incredibly crazy and dangerous, but they're well trained to get on the roof and poke a hole and jump down in the middle of the fire and start putting it out from the center. There's a different approach and strategy involved in everything they do, and they're well trained to do that. It is our function and responsibility. We have a fiduciary responsibility, all of us, to ensure strategically that when we take taxpayer funds to restart restoration of these services, we do so carefully, accurately, and it reflects the needs of where the department has been decimated, and we restore it functions correctly. One of the things the police department is, and the reason they're one of the best police departments, if not, quite frankly, the best police department in this country, and I believe actually they are, so I'm biased, but is not only because we have incredible men and women in the department that have done a phenomenal job, but quite frankly, the leadership of the department has done a phenomenal job. I can't speak enough about Charlie Beck and what an incredible chief he is and his command staff. We've got Kirk Albanese and many others that are here today on some other items that are phenomenal. One thing they have, two things they have that you don't. And quite frankly, I think you're set up for failure unless we do deploy both of these strategies immediately. And one, which is already a program that I authored and was approved by the council and signed by the mayor, and it's in the pipeline, and we talked a little bit about it, is FireStat. It's one thing the police department brought in under Bratton was CompStat. I've asked each one of you to go to a CompStat meeting and see what they're doing. The fact that they do measure everything within the department. They analyze it. They hold people accountable. It's transparent. All the information is posted regularly online. They track everything. They adopt and adapt to the environment. Functions and programs are fluid. They're constantly bringing on new strategies and training and based on the data. The data is solid, and they are very careful in what they capture and how they capture it. The fire department never had that capability, and because we haven't invested in the technology. Their CAD systems are out of date. It's not that they have flawed in setting that up. We didn't give them the tools historically to do that. That's being changed now. The other tool
that the police department and the police commission specifically has that you don't. They have a weapon, and they have a tool, and they have a person that is the liaison and the go-to person for the commission. And they've got a guy named Richard Tiefenk, who also happens to be in the room. This guy is incredible. But he's the executive director of the commission. The fire department has no executive director. That's insane. We've got to change that. You need to have a Richard Tiefenk, and then we should actually label that the position, not executive director. That'll be the name of the position, Richard Tiefenk. But we've got to create the ability. You are volunteers, not paid, and quite frankly, full-time. In fact, I have yet to come across many commissioners like Steve Fazio who puts as much time and effort and energy into this commission role than he does almost anything else in his personal life or his business life. Lives and breathes this commission constantly. I think every meal he has is at a fire station. And he brings the meal, by the way. He doesn't have them cook, just so you know. It's an incredible responsibility, and there's a lot to do. But with that, you need help as well, and you need a go-to person that's full-time. And so we need to look at creating that position for the fire department and for the commission, because I've seen it work, and it works. If I have any question at all regarding anything in the department, rather than try to track down that person in the department and the police department who may have some knowledge on, and it's vast, it's difficult. Oftentimes they're very, very busy. They're very responsive, but just trying to figure out who's in charge of what and where things are. Instead, I speed dial, call Richard Tiefenk. Called him yesterday morning. Where are we at on X, Y, and Z? He said, "Sir, this is what's going on. This is where the department's at." And knows it right off the top of his head. We need that. That's critically important. We don't have time to ensure that you get information. Information is key to making decisions, and decisions are timely decisions. So with that, and with some of the things that Mr. Bonnet had mentioned as well, his district is very sensitive. My district as well is the highest fire severity zone. We have our annual fires. Yesterday was the anniversary of the Chatsworth Metrolink train collision, one of the worst collisions in U.S. history. I was one of the first responders on that as well. We have, home of the Northridge earthquake. That's coming up, the anniversary of that. It's coming up January 17th. We are the epicenter of disaster in my district as well. But we all share that. We all have those particular issues. And so I do ask that you do go out to all of them and take a look at it. But we're all also one city. And we've got to look at that in parts of cities, particularly where I'm at as well. We don't have mutual aid capabilities from other places, per se, because we're not in the middle of an area. They can't come from anywhere else. They're coming from one part of the city, one part of the valley, because we're on the edge. And beyond the edge is just a mountain terrain of fuel waiting to burn all the time. So we have very unique circumstances in each one of our districts. In the Port of Los Angeles, certainly, we can probably spend hours about the sensitivities and what we need to deal with there. Ms. Martinez's district is right next to mine as well. Very, very sensitive areas in Port of LA. So we've got a lot of unique geographical complexities that have to always be constantly looked at as well. But with that comes opportunity to do things different. And so, one of the things the fire department did recently is they've deployed motorcycles for first responders. Motorcycles.
Wow.
So they can get up there quickly through these canyons and render medical aid. And brilliant. Little things that are brilliant that will save a life. They are doing more with less every day, little things like that. Those little things are huge when you're the one having a heart attack, when it's your child that can't breathe because they fell into the pool. And that EMT on a motorcycle, getting there in minutes rather than much longer, those little things aren't so little anymore. So they're constantly doing more with less. They're challenged financially. So this is a huge challenge for all of us. We're here to support you. And with that, it'll be the recommendation, I think unanimously, from this commission, from this committee to say congratulations to each and every one of you. Godspeed. We have you in council today. I will give you the heads up in advance. We spend a lot of time in commission, in committee, and in personal meetings, meeting with each and every one of you, and that will continue. And council, our council president, is very sensitive of time as well, and so he appreciates that we've spent the quality time in committee and in personal meetings rather than in council going through a lot of Q&A. I do anticipate questions from other council members. You feel free to answer whatever you'd like, but, you know, we don't have to elaborate as much. And you can also feel free, though, if you'd like, and I would strongly suggest you meet each and every one of them personally and offer to meet each and every one of them and take the opportunity to do that and get to know them and their staff as well. I want to say congratulations and, again, Godspeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll be the action of this committee, without objection, unanimous on all of our commissioners. Fire Commission. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We could applaud if you like. Hey, Steve. I was texting you. All right, thank you very much. With that, we have a few items left. That takes us to we have item 11, item 14, and item 16, I believe.
That's correct.
And since we see so many here from the police department, I believe you're here on items 14 and 16? 16. And 14. So let's go ahead, if we could, take item 16. I want to try to get you folks back. And I appreciate your patience in sitting through this morning. I know you're very busy. If you can, we'll go ahead and take item 16 first, if you want to come on
Item
up.
16, motion, Englander Parks requesting the LAPD and city attorney to conduct an in-depth analysis of department memos regarding alternate misdemeanor infractions.
Morning, sir. Ma'am. Madam. People, folks. Yes. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. If you could, and this was my motion as well, is give us the history of exactly what occurred here, where we're at. There's been some press articles on the fact that the department sort of unilaterally took a series of misdemeanors categorically and just moved them down to infractions. Upon meeting with you, sir, you enlightened me on the history, and in fact, that's not the case, and it has an ability to allow officers to still have that discretion, just provide more information. And so I really do appreciate everything you shared with me on that as well. But if you could walk us through where we're at.
Okay, so Kirk Albanese, Deputy Chief, Chief of Detectives for the LAPD. Good morning, council members. With me is Captain Kelly Moldorfer, and she is the Commanding Officer of Detective Support and Vice Division. Excuse me. The department is currently, council member Englander, working on a response to your motion of August 20th, a written response that will go to the Chief of Police and to the Police Commission prior to coming across the street here. In the meantime, we have contacted every command officer in the city to make sure that each of the 21 areas clearly understand what we're asking relative to the Detective Bureau notice that I signed on July the 25th. That effort has been made. All captains clearly understand where we're going with that. In terms of what we're doing, we're working on some language that reinforces that Detective Bureau notice. That'll be part of the e-learning, our learning management system training that is currently underway. And so all those things are coming to fruition. The written report will be prepared and eventually come to this committee.
Okay, great. And you know the timing on that?
I believe the end of the month it's due to commission.
Okay.
And I don't have the exact date with me. I don't think the exact date has been determined yet, but it's a work in progress.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you coming here on that, and we'll go ahead and continue the item then. And with that, let me thank you again for a lot of the clarity that you shared with me. It'll be great we'll get that out, obviously, once the report's written, to the media as well as the general public.
Does the report come back after it goes to the commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have that here. Correct. And then the full council. But yes, please.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've reached out to all the captains after July 20. Since then, just yesterday, there were some more promotions announced. The folks who have become captains in the past couple of weeks, I know I have a new captain at Pacific, and then someone else was promoted to a captain status in West LA just yesterday. Are you also reaching out to the folks who are the new captains as well?
Each of the areas was contacted. At the time they were contacted, they reached out to their roll calls, and the command will make that effort, council member. I'll ensure that effort is made. All this is kind of coming to fruition. The learning management system training, that it is part of e-learning, the outreach to the captains to make sure that they clearly understand what the department expects relative to that Detective Bureau notice.
Thanks.
Thank you. And if I could on that, just share with you just some of my own research recently and reaching out to, actually it took a little bit of a back of the napkin sample of reaching out to various watch commanders and others citywide and just dipping my toe in the water, if you will, not scientifically, but some phone calls. And it seems that there remains a lot of confusion, that people aren't sure, particularly officers in the field that I've spoken to, that don't know what to do. A lot of things are getting kicked back, even narratives on greenies, RFCs, they're not writing any. There seems to be just a lot of confusion over the policy, and this is as recent as 2 days ago, and reaching out. But what I've shared with them is that the written report is coming. There's an e-learning component that you shared with me. All of this is forthcoming and going out there. They still have the ability to do all these things, and if they read the original memo, July 25th, verbatim, it actually spells that out. You just have to read the second paragraph a little more carefully, but it actually states specifically that, and that's how it was explained to me after having the opportunity to meet and have the city attorney's office and as well as the department walk me through it. And so I actually do understand, and I was able to articulate that to them, and they were much more comfortable. But I did let folks know that this is coming out, and it's a work in progress, and I do appreciate all the effort and energy that you've put in focus on this as well. So we'd look forward to the report.
Council member, those that are expressing concern to you, if a member of your staff can communicate that, I'd be very interested to know, because we talk directly to the area COs. Those matters have been clear. So if you have a particular watch commander that has an issue with it, we need to know that so we can clear it up.
You got it. Be happy to.
I appreciate it. I'll wait for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So we'll continue that until we get the written report. All right. With that, I believe we have item 14.
And 11.
Proper use of 911.
Item 11? 14.
All right, let's go ahead and take item 14, if we could, first.
Item 14, LAPD report relative to the public's appropriate use of the 911 emergency system and efforts taken by the department to increase public awareness regarding appropriately reporting non-emergency incidents.
This is a Buscaino motion, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the Los Angeles Police Department, for being here, especially our friends and family from the Communications Division. We continue to thank you for your work and dedication across the street and in the Valley as well. I'll put on my slow hat, as I do occasionally around here. The 877 Ask LAPD, a huge resource for us, specifically on the non-emergency calls, and something that we promoted on the field in our neighborhood watch groups, business watch groups, and and other community-based organizations that we worked with on educating them on the non-emergency line. I want to know, we have a sense of how much money non-emergency calls are costing the city in response times and tying up personnel that could otherwise be responding to emergencies?
Good morning, council members. Donald Schwartzer. I'm the relatively new commanding officer of Communications Division, having assumed that command this past June. Monetarily speaking, I don't think we're at the point where we're costing any money, where it's making a debit out of our account to handle non-emergency calls. We have 70% of the 911 calls are deemed to be non-emergency calls. So with personnel, we're currently down 60 PSR positions at Communications Division, and that is going to be remedied this coming January when Personnel Department will be hiring more PSRs. I believe there's 2 classes in the budget. Of course, we will not see the benefit of those PSRs for probably a year to 18 months, considering the long training process.
Yeah.
Relative to the educational program, with me is Senior PSR Lillian Brock and Sergeant Loma Holland and Daniel Hill. What they were tasked with, based on your motion, was to start a public outreach campaign to educate the public on the use of 877 Ask LAPD. And what we have done is we have launched the public outreach program. And I'll let each one of them share with you what has been accomplished at that.
Please, I see a PSA on my desk here. It's great to, I'd like to hear more.
First, Sergeant Loma Holland really has jumped the bureaucracy. She's done something faster than I've ever seen someone get done when it involves the mayor and the chief of police to get a public service announcement done. And I'll let her explain what she's accomplished in that area.
Yes, good morning, council members. Fortunately, around June the 26th, approximately around July, we received information that our training unit, video unit, could actually produce a video, a PSA regarding 1877 Ask LAPD and 911 emergency line for free. And so that managed to cut through a lot of the red tape, so to speak, in order to get the PSA completed. And as we were brainstorming about who would be in this PSA to reach out to the public, we came up with the idea of Mayor Garcetti, Chief Beck, and they graciously accepted. So on August the 6th at approximately 0900 hours, within Communications Division down here at MCDC, we filmed the PSA. And the first PSA was 45 minutes with Chief Beck and also with the mayor. And they spoke basically about what, when to call 911.
45 seconds.
45 seconds.
Oh, that was 45 minutes.
No.
Okay, sorry.
45 seconds for the English version, and it was 1 minute for the Spanish version.
Nice. Very nice.
Mayor Garcetti spoke in fluent Spanish. It was great. And currently, it's going through the editing phase, and so everyone has been provided with a CD of the rough copy at this point. Prior to the release of the actual PSA, what we'll do is make sure that we have a press release where yourself, sir, will be present. Also, Captain Schwartzer, along with Chief Beck, and also with Mayor Garcetti.
Fantastic.
So that's where we stand as of today.
Great. And please, each respective council office has its own website and own social media tools as well, and including cell phones. And so please use us as a tool as well to get the message out. I wanted to also look at, and Mr. Chair talked about CompStat. Are we CompStatting the 877 Ask LAPD phone calls and the current usage of the 877 Ask LAPD? We have current stats on it. Dan?
Good morning, Councilman. For the CompStat records that we have, I am Police Service Representative to Daniel Hill, and thank you for having us today. Sure. The numbers that we have, for last year, the total calls, this is both emergency and non-emergency, sir, was about 4 million calls total for both the Valley Center and the Downtown Center of all the calls that we received. And as Captain Schwartzer mentioned, Well, let me first tell you that 2.3 million of those calls are just 911 calls that come through the 911 line. And of those 2.3 million, through the ComStat records, we found the number to be that 70% of those calls are of a non-emergency nature, which could be either a referral to our 877 Ask LAPD line, transfer a non-emergency police dispatchable call, or a referral to a station. With those numbers, it indicated to us, as you mentioned, being a senior lead officer, having your SOL hat on, the outreach need to educate the public both on what the proper use of 911 is for and the alternative number to use based off of those numbers.
We just appointed a new police commission, and the vice president of the police commission have some strong ties to the media. Please use her as a resource as well. I believe she worked for NBC Studios as well. KNBC.
We can get her number again, please?
Yes,
Okay, very
she's
well. Thank you.
one of our most. We just appointed her. I forget her name. Miss Madison, right? Thank you, Mr. T. Fang. Another great resource. Well, thanks so much for the report. I really appreciate the work that's been done. And again, in my days out in the field, a number of calls and work and visiting the Metro Communications Center here, so many 911 calls should have been, or non-emergency calls should have been directed to the 8779. And perhaps you can even do a billboard marketing strategy as well to get the word out.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. And I just had a quick comment, if my colleagues had any other questions. With that, and I'm sorry, how many calls actually come into the stations? Do we track that? We don't. Directly to the stations?
Strictly the stations and not the 911 centers?
Correct.
Direct dial to the station, I don't believe we actually have that number available.
Okay. I'd like to see if we can put some kind of focus on the direct dial at the stations. I don't know if there's a way to capture that information through phone logs or otherwise, but there's been, it seems to be a recent, and I'm not sure how recent, quite frankly, it could be ongoing, but some issues at the station level, citywide. And as a chair of public safety, I get a lot of phone calls from folks all over the city and we've gotten some recently. In fact, I've gotten some recently where I actually had to pick up the phone and call a captain directly and say that your folks answering the phone are not trained as officers to answer a phone. They give really terrible advice. In fact, I had to give examples of some of the things that were stated that I won't repeat here and now, and called the commanding officer and said, you need to look at this right away. I've gotten 4 complaints to my office this week.
Okay.
It was not Devonshire in my district either, just putting that out there. So, but I got 4 separate calls. We've heard a lot about either being put on hold or not answering the phone at all at the desk. And it gets crazy at the desk. I understand that. At different times of the day. I've worked the front desk. I understand you get walk-ins and all kinds of issues that just take you away from answering a phone as well. So I'm not sure if there's other tools and technology that we might be able to utilize where first it answers perhaps with some type of push-button system where if you're looking for the detectives, if you're looking for, and that's one of the issues that we have not invested in LAPD, is a phone system. We've had phone system issues at stations where they go out. We should be on a VoIP, a voice over internet, where you have directories and trees and you can find people. We don't have those capabilities. I'd like the department to perhaps look into that from a customer service perspective, but also usability for the officers. It's very challenging, and it's quite frankly, we spend a lot of time this morning talking about technology in the fire department. The phone system in the city in all departments is antiquated and outdated and doesn't work. But when you get citizens calling on a non-emergency, they're still calling on something important. If they're actually calling a front desk to a police department, and you do get some weird phone calls. I've taken many of those. Like, yes, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't know what water boils at to ensure your eggs are done. I've gotten those. I actually got that call. That's why I gave that example. I got that call. I actually looked it up, though, and gave them the answer. But in any event,
That wasn't your wife, right?
Just trying to be helpful. Thank you for that. Ouch. No, she knew the answer. That's why I looked it up. So you do get some bizarre calls, but for the most part, if somebody's calling they actually took the time to say, I don't have to bother a 911 caller. I don't have to call, and it's not life-threatening, but it is important, and it's a police issue, but I'll take the time to find the number from my local station and actually call it, and when they do then, and have that experience, because our technology is so antiquated or the officers are so busy, which is most of what those two issues are, it's incredibly frustrating to that person. And it reflects on all of us then. And so perhaps there's some opportunities with technology. I called Southwest Airlines recently, and they said, it answers the phone. This is really incredible. And it answers the phone and says, I'm sorry, all of our operators are currently on the phone with other customers, but your call and your time is so important to us that we don't want you to sit on hold. So if you type in your phone number, you don't lose your place online, and we'll call you back. There's no way this actually works. So I typed in my phone number. I hung up the phone. They said, your approximate wait time is 8 minutes. Literally, like 6 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's Southwest Airlines calling.
Wow.
How cool would that be if the police department had that capability, if the citywide had that capability, but the police department, where you're freeing up officers' time, then it's not an issue of training or anything else. But, they can queue them up and then call you back. Those are the things we've got to look into. And we've got, as officials of the city and from the budget perspective, look at that. Those kinds of investments will save us money because it frees up officer time as well. And so maybe we can look into some of those capabilities.
Absolutely.
All right. Really appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this motion. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And that brings us to our final, we'll go ahead and note and file that, please. And without objection, we'll go ahead and take the final item, that's police permit fee increases.
So report relative to increase in various police permit fees.
Mr. Tiefenk, who are you and what do you do?
Good morning, council members. Thank you for the kind comments, sir. I do appreciate them. Before you is the annual adjustment of police permit fees that the Police Commission establishes based on utilizing a time analysis study where we look at the individual employees of the department, both sworn and civilian, who are involved in the process of processing police permits, and in the case of false alarms, responding to false alarms. From that data, we then adjust the fees every year for cost recovery of the services that we're providing. The analysis has been done of our report by the CAO's office, and Emery Sowers here from the CAO's office to speak to that, and I'll answer any of the questions you might have about our report.
Okay, I just had a couple quick questions. My colleagues have any questions? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Tiefenk. Will this overall increase in fees have an impact on the speed of permit reviews and approval? Secondly, will this also have an impact on reviewing businesses that are operating outside their bounds of their advertised business operations?
As to the speed of the approval process, about 3 years ago, the council adopted a recommendation from the commission to vest the authority to issue police permits to the executive director, with the exception of those that are First Amendment permits, which are those that involve any entertainment situation, any adult entertainment, or any movie theater. Other than that, all permits can come to me for approval. Our permit processing time is generally less than 90 days, which is the requirement under the ordinance. So we process the permits very efficiently. As to those businesses that do not have permits appropriately, when we find out about those businesses, we go out and conduct an investigation. If they are operating without a permit, we will get them into compliance or, in some cases, shut their business
My
down.
other concern with the rate increase is, we're competing with businesses across the region, and how's this going to have an impact on our business community, and, how will this fee structure, how does this fee structure compare to other cities across the area?
We don't compare our fee structure to other cities because we are operating under the guidelines of the mayor's office for cost recovery. That's why we do an analysis of the time it takes for us to do the process. In some cases, our fees have gone down this year Other cases, there's been a very slight modification in the fees, and the reason they have gone down is because efficiencies improve. The reason they go up, it could be basically the cap rate, the benefit rate of the employees involved is really what drives the number.
And what's the fees used for?
I'm sorry, sir?
What's the fees used for staff?
The fee is a cost recovery for the staff involved in processing the permits, and that would be civilian staff, which has a different cap rate or benefit rate than the sworn staff have. And sworn staff have, if you're a field sworn, you have a different benefit rate than an inside sworn staff.
Got it, thank you.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you very much. And I noticed some of these fees are greatly increasing, and some are not. And I suppose it's not tied to the actual infield follow-up in terms of CID or SID or anybody else going out on particular
No, we
investigation?
cannot recover the cost of investigative time.
Okay.
The permit is the permit fee. Some of them will go up because of the fact we have to do additional processing time now, and additional investigative work may be required to issue the permit fee. Some just because, again, of the civilian time that is involved in processing the permits.
Because I just didn't want, people to question the fact that antique show collectors, for example, is going up while off-business massage parlors and escorts are going down, and palm brokers are, so, it sends a weird message that there's certain ones that are going way up, and others that we probably have more police issues with are going down. So it's a matter of processing it, and maybe perhaps offline, if you can walk me through specifically, we can do a deeper dive into what that processing means, so I can have a better understanding of why some of those would go up and some of them.
I can answer very quickly the massage fee. The massage fee used to include a cost recovery that we would have to make to pay the County of Los Angeles for the health inspections that they did. They no longer have that service, so therefore that fee went down because we do not have to capture that fee from the customer.
I knew you would know every single one of these, and I would say that I'm impressed, but I'm not, because I know you always have all these answers, as always, and I know you're an expert on the massage category stuff too. So I appreciate you coming here this morning. That'll conclude. We'll go ahead and move this on without objection to the full City Council. Thank you. That will adjourn this meeting.
Wow. You're turning red. Very. Hey, I built you up all meeting long. I had to throw something at the end.